When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Welcome to YATESY'S Espresso Bar.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and to YATESY'S Espresso Bar. I'm your host, Rich Ferraro, and we are recording this on Tuesday, the 21st of October, the day that Sean Dyche has been announced and confirmed as the new head coach of Nottingham Forest Football Club, bringing with him ex-Forest players Steve Stone, Ian Wone, and the lesser heralded Tony Loughlin, with Billy Mercer joining as goalkeeping coach as well. So I'm joined by two guests this evening. Normally it's just me and one other Forest supporter sitting here talking about stuff, but it's quite a big news day. So I'm going to say hello, first of all, to Stephen Toplis. How are you doing, Stephen?
Yes, all good. Getting used to third manager of the season already.
Yeah, and obviously we heard from you the other day when we did our podcast following the sacking of Ange Postecoglou, and I was just thinking after we recorded that, has it ever been the case that the same club has been responsible for not just the first managerial sacking of the season, but actually the first two?
I'd love to find out. I saw the stat earlier today that we're the first team to have had two managers before Halloween, which I thought was quite a good stat. A unique situation we found ourselves in, but I think a necessary situation.
Yeah, I think we all agreed on that on Saturday. And joining us as well is a special guest who is Steve Burns, Nottingham Forest season ticket holder, occasional guest on this podcast. And Steve, first of all, just a little thought in terms of your initial impressions about Sean Dyche being confirmed as the new gaffer.
Well, I think the first thing is it's going to completely ruin my voice because I'll have to do the obligatory kind of Sean Dyche voice anytime anybody mentions him, and I've got a sore throat coming on the way already. So, but yeah, I mean, I've just watched his initial press conference, and he came over really well. He came over as somebody who's really happy to be there, somebody that knows the club, and I think all of the things that Ange got wrong in his PR, he seemed to get right in his very first interview. So, yeah, expectant, I think, is one way to describe it.
Okay, well, just you've mentioned the name of the Australian erstwhile incumbent, and just the last thing I really want to talk about on that topic is Steve. Obviously, you sit with you and your family in the Upper Brian Clough, if I remember rightly, and at the end of the match against Chelsea, when Ange Postecoglou was stood there, it reminded me a little bit about that John Travolta meme from Pulp Fiction, where he's standing there looking frankly a bit lost and confused. At that moment, did you have any sympathy with the guy?
I'm going to say yes, actually, I did. It kind of had it smacked of wrong person at the wrong time. I did feel a bit sorry for him in terms of, players like Murillo being out long term. Douglas Luiz is in, has a great performance in our first game in Europe, and then goes off at half time, and we don't see him back. And then missing players like Ola Aina, again, really, really key players within our team. I did have some sympathy for him, and also the fact that he didn't have significant periods of time to stamp his authority onto the team, really, in terms of the way that he wanted to play. But on the other hand, the results have been dreadful, and shipping goals left, right, and centre. That inability to be able to keep a clean sheet, the inability to really work out who his best team was, or really to kind of use all of the players that he had at his disposal. When you're seeing players like Hutchinson being left out of the squad entirely, you have to wonder what's going on. So, yeah, I did have a little bit of sympathy for him, but I think my main feeling was just relief that that period of time is over for us.
And some of the things that you touched upon there, I was able to touch upon earlier today when I spoke to Naga Munchetti on Radio 5 Live.
Get some reaction to this. Rich Ferraro from 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Rich, hello.
Hi, Naga.
You can't say you haven't had personalities leading the team, can you?
Yeah, well, personalities obviously lead to polarisation as well, don't they? So, one man's perfect personality is another man's, grinds your gears, doesn't it?
Well, what about Sean Dyche? Where does he sit with you?
Well, he's obviously got more of a connection with Forest fans, and that's what Ange Postecoglou...
Explain that to me.
Okay, well, he's got a history with the club. He's got coaching staff who've played for Forest. He lives in Nottingham, and and also he's, with his start in the game, he's very much a disciple of Brian Clough. And so one thing that's important to Forest fans is values in terms of community, values in terms of the style of how you go about your business, doing things the right way. And it never felt that Ange Postecoglou quite clicked with that. Unfortunately, wearing Paul Smith clothes isn't enough to make you seem like a son of Nottingham.
Okay. Apart from his clothes, I thought there was quite a bit of excitement when he went to Nottingham Forest after being sacked from Spurs, in terms of his management style. But you don't feel that was a natural fit?
No, I don't. And, 5 weeks ago, I was talking to you around this time with Mariana when she was covering for you. And, of course, Mariana's a Spurs fan, and she was saying, well, take Europa League and just escaping relegation. And that worked for us. And I was going, that would work for us too. But unfortunately, you do have to win some matches occasionally. And if you're not winning matches, you need to be seen to be doing things in the right way. And unfortunately, he didn't manage either of those things.
What will then, as well as having an affinity with Nottingham, what else will Sean Dyche bring in terms of play, in terms of strategy?
Clean sheets, hopefully.
There's more to it than that, though, isn't there?
Well, there is, but again, thinking about him as a disciple of Clough, and Forest fans I'm a bloke in my 40s, so that's what I was brought up on, which is that if you start off with clean sheets, get the basics right, then all the good stuff will follow. And Postecoglou, it just felt like he was trying to sprinkle glitter on something that was, less palatable, let's say.
My producer, Richard, is a massive fan of Sean Dyche's voice, a gravelly, gorgeous voice. That's what he'll bring. And I'll say Ange Postecoglou brought a bit of spark and defiance. Either way, they have to win over the fans, and that's got to happen on the pitch, hasn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. When Nuno Espirito Santo took over, there was some scepticism, and it took half a season for Forest to learn to defend set pieces. But once it clicked, then people realised that actually, you know what, Nuno was doing the right things in terms of connecting with the city, with the community, as well as bringing, overachievement on the pitch. And to me, I've always said the mark of a good manager is when he gets a team to play greater than the sum of its parts. And you could argue about the levels of success or otherwise he's had at Burnley and Everton, but he's always got them punching above their weight, I think.
Okay, well, good luck. Hopefully we'll see how this one goes. Rich Ferraro from 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Stephen Toplis, just to come to you on that. So Steve Burns has said it. I've just said it earlier as well. One of the key things is that Sean Dyche, part of his track record as he gets teams getting solid, keeping clean sheets, doing the basics like learning how to defend set pieces, and that's going to be something he's really going to be under pressure to get right pretty quickly, isn't he?
We've been shipping goals so easily that that's got to be the first job that he gets right, getting the team solid and a defensive unit working together again. To bring it back to the point that Steve made, I do have some sympathy for Ange because he was without Murillo early on after he limped off in his first game. There was no Ola Aina. You take two of your best defenders out, you're always going to struggle. But despite that, Ange never looked like addressing the defensive issues in the team that had started under Nuno. This wasn't just something with Ange. This has gone back for a while now. So, yeah, for me, that's one of the big positives of Sean Dyche coming in. I think he can sort the defence out, give the team confidence through that, give Matt Sells more confidence through that as well, because he's looked a bit shaky last couple of games. And if we can get that defence right, I'm hoping the rest will follow.
And just to stay with you, Stephen, last word on Ange, I suppose, which is that the speculation is that they gave him that international break so that he could actually get some time on the training pitch with the players who weren't on international duty, get to know his squad in a way that he hadn't had a chance to do because of the matches coming so thick and fast. For Sean Dyche, I mean, really the proof of the pudding is going to be, is he able to get things looking better within a week?
Yeah, of course. And he's coming into a very tough situation because not only are we in a bad run of form, but the team's confidence is on the floor. Not so much in performances because you could tell that the players were trying to perform for Ange and trying to do the right things for him, but it just wasn't coming off. And those missed chances, the goals going in at the other end are all signs of a team that's lacking in confidence. So that's another thing that Sean Dyche has got to turn around. But I think with his personality and his know-how, he'll be able to do that. And it might not come right away. We might have to prepare ourselves for a few more rocky weeks while Sean Dyche beds in and the players get used to his way of working. But his track record suggests that he can get the team doing the basics well and get some confidence back in amongst the players.
And on that topic, Steve Burns, I don't know if you've seen any of the videos on social media, but they've really gone to town on making the players look delighted to have the new coaching team there, which, if nothing else, can only help to fuel allegations that the players didn't really like playing under Postecoglou too much. Now, I'm just going to take a bit of a sideways glance on that one because I've always said there's absolutely no point in interviewing footballers because they're so media trained that you know what answer they're going to give. And Morgan Gibbs-White in particular was saying, no, he's brought some new ideas and we're excited by working with that. But then Ryan Yates, bless him, club captain, absolute, poster boy for Nottingham. And in his interview, when he was wheeled out on Match of the Day on Saturday evening, there's a few people reading between the lines saying, you know what? It was never going to work with Postecoglou, was it? Are we being too conspiratorial there?
I don't know. I mean, I think with some of the performances we saw on the pitch, I'm thinking particularly of the drop-off in form that we've had from Morgan, you do kind of think there was something amiss. I remember sitting in the stands for the first game of the season and turning to my son next to me and going, I can't believe this is our team. The way that they're playing, the way that Morgan and Anderson were just unplayable in that first half. I was dreaming of top six and winning the league on that kind of performance. And then obviously it all fell apart. And since then, Morgan's been a shadow of the player that we know that he can be. And again, that may be down to, lack of confidence. It may be down to a number of things. But one thing could be just the way that he was being utilised by Ange, the space that he had to move on the pitch, and the amount of times that he's been culpable for some of the goals that we've let in have started with his mistakes. So there's something clearly not right there for a player who started the season with one of his best ever performances. So I don't think we'll ever know behind the curtain exactly what was going on. I did feel a little bit sorry for Yatesy being wheeled in front of the camera, having to comment on that and basically say nothing about his own opinions and toe the party line. But I don't think we'll ever really know.
It's been said elsewhere by many people, and I will echo that, which is it's a real mark of the man, Ryan Yates. Mr. Forest through and through, and he wasn't expecting to be interviewed. He didn't even play in the match. There he was, wheeled out in his sweatshirt, and just told, "All right, here you go. Can you talk to Match of the Day, please?" And the one thing that I will say is that the bit that stuck out to me is when they said, was it surprised that he's gone? And he said, well, not really, because it's football and this is what happens in football.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me as well if the way that Yatesy's been picked by every single captain, every single manager that he's played for, that we start to see him getting more minutes as well in the near future. Again, just thinking about some of the other players, if we're being conspiratorial about this, then, Murillo liked the post where Forest actually announced that Ange was leaving. So that's the closest I've got to saying that the players didn't like him.
Yeah, it has to be said that as far as I can tell, Murillo likes every post that's on Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's automatic.
Someone was pointing out that he liked a post which was from the Evening Post, which was about a car park in Beeston. So maybe he just likes everything that's on Instagram. It's quite possible. Anyway, coming back to you, Stephen Toplis, I think Steve's made a good point there, which is I'm personally predicting, and we'll talk about the Porto match in part 2 of tonight's podcast, I'm personally predicting that Ryan Yates is going to get a lot more minutes now.
I think so too. He seems like he's a perfect fit for Sean Dyche, the kind of man out on the pitch, the manager out there almost. And I think he'll have a big part to play. I said on the show on Saturday that I felt Ange was guilty of not using him enough. There were games in that run where Ryan Yates would have really brought something to the team. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea with his style of play, but he's effective, and there are games that we're going to play this season where we're really going to need Ryan Yates. Sean Dyche will recognise that, I'm sure. So, yeah, I'll be glad to see him in the team, and hope to see him a bit more now.
And Stephen, to stay with you, on the weekend podcast, the speculation had just emerged, like literally while we're recording, about Roberto Mancini, and you said, well, it's really exciting that there's a link there, but I think the club have done the right thing, haven't they? Because if the problem with Postecoglou was that the players and the fans couldn't connect, and there was not that, in the same way as I mentioned to Nottingham and Chelsea, wearing Paul Smith won't make you seen, isn't enough to get you seen favourably as being someone who'll be welcome around Nottingham. First of all, I can't imagine Mancini wearing Paul Smith, and then secondly, I think that level of aloofness, maybe, and that idea that it's my way or the highway is what got Postecoglou, that perception got Postecoglou into trouble in the first place, and I can't see that being any better with someone like Mancini, could you?
No, and when you hear some of the stories that were coming out from former players at Man City about his approach and that aloofness and being able to fall out with people, that wouldn't have been what we needed at this moment in time, even though I think Mancini's pedigree is there to be seen. It's obvious, and I think he could have brought a lot to the role. When you look at it in practical terms, of all the managers out there available, Sean Dyche is the best fit right now. And his personality and his knowledge of the Premier League is going to be massive for us in the next couple of months as we pull ourselves away from the bottom 3, hopefully, and stabilise. I think he's a more stabilising influence than Roberto Mancini or somebody similar coming in from abroad.
Steve?
I think for those of you that saw Monday Night Football last night, there was a really interesting analysis they did of the styles of Nuno, the styles of Dyche, and then contrasting that with Postecoglou. And it does seem very much that Dyche is heir to Nuno's throne in terms of the graphics they put up, in terms of the way that he plays, the way that he organises his team. It does very much feel like he can take the foundation that Nuno has built and look to actually build on that with the players that have been recruited over the summer. So it does very much to me feel like it's a significantly better fit, not only from a personality perspective, but also from a coaching perspective.
Just on the topic of Monday Night Football, Steve, I caught some of it on the radio, and I heard a little bit where Chris Sutton appeared to be speculating that the players got Postecoglou sacked and there was some kind of mutiny, and the fact that Ryan Yates was wheeled out from Match of the Day is signifying that. Now, I was doing other stuff, so I just had it on the background, but is that borderline slander?
It's Chris Sutton. We're kind of used to it, aren't we?
Okay, and coming up in part 2, we'll start to look ahead to the Porto match while we digest that logic.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, with me, Rich Ferraro. I'm joined by Steve Burns and by Stephen Toplis. And Stephen Toplis, I'm going to come to you because let's start to think about what we can expect under Sean Dyche. So we know that he is this disciple of Clough, and the coaching staff he's brought with him, Tony Loughlin, Steve Stone, Ian Wone, they are Clough men as well. So do you think we'll end up going back to those basics, trying to get it solid at the back, possibly playing two banks of four and kind of doing the dirty stuff first before we see anything else happen?
I think that's going to be the approach, yeah, because that's what the team needs at the moment, is to have that solid base back and something to build on. So if you get the defence right, get them conceding fewer goals, keeping more clean sheets, defending free kicks for a start, that would be nice. If you can get all that in place, then you can start to work on the attacking side of the game and really working with the attacking talent that we brought in over the summer. I'm hopeful that because Ange's only been here for 8 games, our players are still very much drilled in Nuno's style, and it won't take them that long to pick up what Sean Dyche wants to do, because it'll be a very similar approach from him.
Okay, let's have a listen to Sean Dyche when he was on the High Performance podcast talking about the right way to play football.
Of course, if you can do it by playing fantastic, amazing football like a Man City doing that, well, that's fantastic. But not many can. And it's that really tricky situation now. And I feel for the younger managers, because they're almost under pressure to tell the world they're going to play the right way. And then they're sacked within 6 months. And you go, imagine how many people in 9.5 years I've heard say, we're going to play the right way and do the right thing, and then they get sacked. I mean, you're talking...
Well, what is the right? Isn't the right way winning games of football?
Yeah, but that's the big debate, isn't it? You know, now it's become winning games of football, we have to win it playing a certain way.
And what do you say when people say, oh, it needs to be more entertaining, Sean?
Well, entertainment still often revolves around winning. We're all incredibly entertained when your team's winning, trust me. In any sport, by the way. You know, I mean, it's crept into rugby, you all know that. I don't know that much about rugby, but I know... I've done a bit with Eddie Jones and a few of the rugby bit, and they go, oh, no, we're brand, you know, the brand's coming in, you know, more play, kicking football, more play, skilled hands or whatever they call it. I don't know all the terminologies, but, you know, it does creep in. But the thing is, when we talk openly like this, I'm just trying to explain it. The bizarre thing is, at least when you can explain it, you listen, we share, but you do this in the media and guess what? See, you know, and you just get back in your box again. Whereas actually, I'm just debating that there are more ways of playing. Doesn't make them all right or wrong. Of course, if you...
Oh, and just stop Sean there. So Steve Burns, I mean, firstly, it's back to basics, isn't it? That's one of the key things, and that's what Forest need to do. Do you also think that it, you know, Dyche illustrates a certain point, which is that everyone was happy with Nuno ball last season until the last quarter of the season when we were trying to play the same way, but without getting the results?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And whether you can put that down to Nuno's tactics or whether you can put that down to the team essentially running out of steam towards the end of the season and not having the strength and depth in the squad, I don't think we'll ever know. I mean, certainly there was a desire for Nuno to evolve that over the summer. We saw them playing, you know, with 2 strikers quite regularly in pre-season. And that the way that they came out, like I said, in the first game was as good as I've seen Forest play for years. And I think Sean's approach is probably what we need at the moment, is pragmatic. It's recognizing there are ways to go about winning games, and that's maybe not always pretty, but I'm sure to his point, if we start winning games, then we won't really care about what the style is once we start getting results again.
And is the accusation is that this is merely demonstrating the mistake that, the statement today announcing Sean Dyche was making the point, Edu and Sirianos have really gone all out to try and get Dyche in as the best fit. Is that also an admission of the fact that, you know what, frankly, we ballsed it up, we picked the wrong man, and we should never have appointed Postecoglou, and actually trying to go for revolution rather than evolution was a misstep?
I do wonder, whether Postecoglou wasn't available back at the beginning, earlier on in the season, whether Dyche would have been the man that would have come in then. Even if we'd have made that change with Nuno going during the summer, would it have been Dyche? And I don't think it would have been. I think we're in a situation now where we are having to steady the ship, where we're having to be pragmatic as an organisation, and I think that has led us, pretty much to a Nuno version 2, as it were. But it would have been interesting to have seen who we'd have gone for during the summer had we made that change earlier and not gone for Ange.
Stephen Toplis, you're wearing what looks to me like a claret top, and I see that, given what Sean Dyche said in that clip there, let's not forget that there's a pub named after him I don't know if it's still there, but there was a pub named after him in Burnley. And ultimately, it just shows, doesn't it? If you get results, then everyone's happy, and everything else follows on from that. So, as I say, with that in mind, on Thursday night, do you see Forest playing 4-4-2, going for 2 banks of 4, keeping it solid, and, maybe split strikers? Chris Wood up front with Jesus or something like that?
I could see that happening, and don't forget the quality of opposition that we're up against in Porto, one of the strongest teams in the competition. I always expected us to have this approach to this game even before Sean Dyche came in. So yes, it's I think that's what we'll see from him. But it's also interesting talking about this style of play. The Premier League this season is becoming more direct. Teams are more willing to go long, play on the counter and try and catch teams out, much in the way that we did last season under Nuno. If anything, we were trailblazers. And there's something quite Forest-like that we were trying to abandon that approach when the rest of the league was seemingly going towards it. You look at Man City this season, even they are playing more direct under Pep Guardiola. Man United on the weekend beat Liverpool playing very direct. So for all the reservations I've had about Sean Dyche coming in, the more I think about it, the more I think he might be a really good fit at this moment in time.
Steve, you're saying, yes, you're nodding along there, and we can hear your affirmation. I'm just going to throw back to one of the key differences when Nuno came in compared to Steve Cooper. And of course, we all still love Steve Cooper and we'll always be forever grateful to him. But you could see there was a real increase in the level of forensic detail that went into the preparation of every single match under Nuno compared to under Coops. And then with Postecoglou, it felt like there wasn't that level of forensic preparation. It felt like, well, we're going to play the way we play, and then if it works, then great, and when it works, it's going to look amazing. But with that comes the other problem, which is like the well quoted thing from Ange about, well, we don't practice set pieces because I've got better things to do with my time. Under Sean Dyche, everything's going to be meticulously prepared, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, in his initial interview on the Forest media that came out today, he was talking about having a fit, well-drilled team, which I think was kind of music to my ears, really, in terms of, you practice, and the hope that will bring a more solidity at the back and a platform you can build on.
And just on the topic, coming back to the topic of Morgan Gibbs-White, so in our weekend podcast, Baz was saying that when Nuno came in, one of the first things he did was say, right, we're going to build this team around Morgan Gibbs-White as a number 10, rather than him playing sort of off on the wing or in slightly different positions like he had done under Cooper. And it just shows, doesn't it, that even the most creative player, even the most kind of productive players, you need to give them structure. Footballers these days, it's not like, I mean, that is a difference to the Brian Clough days where he'd say, right, you're good at defending, you defend, and then pass the ball to somebody who's good at running, and then they pass the ball to somebody who's good at crossing, and so on and so forth. Every player needs to be told quite specifically what their role is in this day and age, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's probably, like I said earlier, I think that's probably one of the issues for Morgan, is that he's not 100% known what his role is. We haven't seen those lung-busting runs to track back and to, take a player out after running 50 yards across the pitch. We haven't seen any of that energy from him in the last few games. We've seen more mistakes. We've seen him desperately trying to impress, desperately trying to implement a style that maybe he's not 100% comfortable with, and it hasn't been coming off. And certainly in the area of the ground where I live, there's been certain calls for him to be dropped from the squad, and some slightly, coarser language about his performance. But I'm kind of hoping that I think he's one of these players. If you put an arm around him, if you make him the main man, if you give him that clear role, then I think he will thrive in that.
Okay. Stephen Toplis, just to as we get towards the end of this reflection upon a busy few days, first of all, what did you make of the statement where they were really laying it on thick about, yes, the club's done lots and lots of research into who's going to be the right, and Edu and George Sirianis have personally approached Sean Dyche, presumably he's just in the pub in Nottingham somewhere, or was down Rock City or whatever. So they've gone to those ends to kind of make the point that is that a high risk thing? Is that going to get the fans back on side, or is that actually going to risk alienating people a bit more?
Speaking as somebody who works in communications, I thought it was a job well done from the team at Forest. Yeah, they basically addressed all of the concerns that the fans had about what happened with the Ange Postecoglou appointment, and they really tried to lay it on and say, no, this has been thought out. This has been several days, weeks in the making, and this is the right man at the right time. I don't think it was quite as detailed as that, but it is what it is. So yeah, I think with what they've got to do now, Forest, is just get the fans back on side. The fans are feeling disillusioned after what's happened at the start of this season. That Brentford game, how great we looked, a 3-1 victory, and it just feels like the season's been ripped apart since. Apart from the odd fleeting moment when you think of Betis away, but other than that, there hasn't been a lot for us to celebrate this season. Let's remind ourselves, that was 30 minutes of the Betis match. Exactly, and it no time at all, really. The fans struggled to get behind Ange Postecoglou. In the end, that was probably justified given what happened with results. So the club's got a lot to do to get the fans back on side. But bringing Sean Dyche in, having the likes of Steve Stone and Ian Wone back at the club, that I must admit,
they're laying that on thick as well.
They're laying that on thick, but. We've been burnt before when we've brought legends back to the club and it hasn't worked out. I've always been a bit sceptical about it after that, but even I was saying to myself today, yeah, it's nice to see them wearing the Forest crest again. So yeah, it's all these little things that will help to get the fans back on side, because Forest need the fans on side. It's one of our most powerful weapons as a club. When the fans are behind the team and the City ground's up for it, there's no other place in the country to play. And the atmosphere that we generate, the feeling we generate around the club, which has been there for most of the past 4 years since Steve Cooper came in, we need to get back to that. If we do, then that alone will take us a long way and get us back to where we were under Nuno at the very least.
And Steve Burns, interestingly, thinking about the dynamic between Dyche and Stone and Wone, I think, Dyche, defender, very seen as being like very get those set pieces right, be hardworking and really, gruff in all senses of the word, not just his voice. And then Stone and Wone, who were wingers, who kind of added a little bit of flair and a bit of fairy dust on top of that. That yin and yang is really, really important, isn't it? I think when people think about the Martin O'Neill reign, one thing that is forgotten is that when Martin O'Neill was successful at club level, it's because he had John Robertson with him. So they had that yin and yang, and then Robertson was gone as Roy Keane, so you had two very kind of grumpy, dour people in charge. Postecoglou, he didn't seem to use his backroom team, and so you got what you got with him. So actually hoping that there's a bit more balance in there, and therefore that's something that the players can relate to as well.
I think it was pointed out I've had the media on all day, I'm not going to lie. I should have been working. But there was the Sky Sports interview, and they were talking very much about how Nuno was constantly in conversation with the other coaches on the bench, and you never saw that with Ange. And so, there is my hope that with Stone and Wone there and the way that Dyche works with them, that, I think that bit of glitter, as I think as you called it in your Radio 5 appearance earlier, hopefully we'll see a little bit of that. I think another thing, just in terms of atmosphere and the fans, I think we've got so used to the atmosphere being good that it's come as a real shock when it's been bad. And at the beginning of the Michelin game, that was probably one of the best atmospheres I've heard for years. It kind of rivaled the playoff final at Wembley, and probably the closest I've come to crying at the City Ground for a long time. And then at the end of the game, I came close to crying for other reasons. But there is kind of hope for me, hope that with Porto on Thursday that we recapture some of that again. It almost feels like we're getting a rerun of this, and also with the ties that we have with the coaches. Again, I think there's a real opportunity for us to have a redo of that atmosphere on Thursday.
Yeah, and I would add in there that the fans want the team to do well, even under Postecoglou. Yeah. They may not have connected with Postecoglou, but they still wanted the team to do well. Stephen Toplis, I just want to end coming back to the issue about communications and everything. I want to end on a somber note, I'm afraid, which is I think it also looks like the Dyche deal was probably done on Sunday night to be announced on Monday, but of course with the events, the announcement of Stuart Pearce's son dying at the age of 21, I think the club probably did the right thing, didn't they, by holding off on that. It would have seemed very insensitive to make any announcement, having just said we're thinking of Stuart and his family.
Definitely, it wouldn't have been the right time. And I think Stuart Pearce and Sean Dyche are very good mates as well. So I'm sure Sean Dyche wouldn't have wanted that to be announced on the day as well. It was just a time to reflect and send our best wishes to Stuart Pearce and his family for what must be just an awful time for him.
Yeah, so we've said it via social media, but we want to kind of echo that. So sending thoughts to the entire Pearce family after the really sad news. Okay, so I don't often do this, but I am going to do it on this occasion, which is, Stephen, what's your prediction for Thursday night?
My prediction is the fans will be up for it. The hope will come back to the City Ground. The team will be up for it. And I think we can sneak a 1-0.
Oh, always optimistic. So, Steve Burns, that leaves you with the last word and a tough act to follow.
I might be picking up Maradona the Midlands role here by being slightly more pessimistic, but I kind of agree. I think the atmosphere will come back. I think the crowd will be up for it, but we are facing a really, really tough opponent. And I think with Dyche only having a few days to try and get things in order, I'm going for 2-2. I'm going for 2-2. So we're not going to lose, but I don't think we're going to be able to win, unfortunately.
Still think that feels fairly optimistic compared to where we were a few days ago.
Definitely.
Yeah, so happy thoughts, everyone, and certainly let's get that atmosphere rocking again at the City Ground. So I'm going to say a big thank you to our guest, Steve Burns. Thank you to our regular, Stephen Toplis, and Baz and Tom will be back on Friday after attending the Porto match. And of course, then we've got Bournemouth coming. So two really tough fixtures to get started with for Sean Dyche, but we welcome him, Stoney and Ian Wone back to the City Ground. And in the meantime, we're going to say, come on, you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
And Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.